right, I appreciate it. Let's go to one of our old friends, Darrell Issa from the great state of California, chairman of the House Committee, Oversight Government Reform. He voted against the fiscal cliff fiasco last night. Congressman, great to talk to you, sir.
Well, Laura, thanks for getting it right that the majority of Republicans understood that a tax increase is when you spend money. The collection of taxes was not the subject last night. The $4 trillion, 3.967, which even in Washington is $4 trillion over 10 years, that will be added to somebody's taxes someday. And I'm sorry that anybody voted to kick the can down the road and say, well, we'll borrow $4 trillion and worry about it later, or we'll fix it somehow in 2 months with the debt ceiling. I've been there 12 years. The one thing that 151 of us understood was that you won't do tomorrow what you don't do today, particularly when you consider that our numbers are getting smaller as far as the Republican majority. We have the largest majority we've had in my lifetime. After the election, we'll have the largest majority still since 1947, but quite frankly, it'll be less.
What do Republicans stand for today after this vote?
Well, 151 of us stand for reducing the size of government and certainly reducing it down to where we will live within the means of the revenue that the people are willing to give us. Last night, I thank those who were going to vote for it, but the 85 who voted for it among Republicans voted for it probably more because they wanted to, quote, keep taxes low, but they're only keeping them low in the present. The fact is that $1 trillion a year of deficit is a tax. It's just a tax on our children's future.
I think that's getting us somewhere, to say it that way, right? I think so much of what is wrong with politics today is that there's not a clear way of thinking about dollars and cents as we understand them in these big monstrosity bills like this bill that passed last night.
Well, okay. Laura, earlier you brought up some of the, and I don't know the technical term that you use on radio for crap, that you put into a bill, but there was a lot of that in this bill. So if you actually took the time to read it, and some of the staff had given us key points right away, to be honest, the Senate loaded this up with pork, not as much as they did the Hurricane Sandy, where they managed to have more dollars of pork than they actually had in relief. But this bill was filled with both tax extenders and spending that certainly the American people wouldn't vote for if they knew they had to put it on their debt, their credit cards,
well,
their
Congressman,
mortgage.
Is it fair to formulate it this way, that there really are no cuts in this bill?
There are no. It's a $330 or so billion are
swamped
increase
by the spending. But any cuts that were supposedly there are swamped by the actual spending in the bill that turns into, over 10 years, $3.8 trillion shoved onto the backs of our kids, our grandkids, and everybody else that happens to be living.
Well, and on top of that, Laura, there's business as usual in this bill. I'm a NASCAR fan. But NASCAR does not need an accelerated depreciation that other companies don't get when they expand the grandstands for races. And don't get me wrong, I think we should be able to depreciate expenses. But there's no reason to have a special carve-out. And there were hundreds of these special carve-outs.
Wait a second. Do we know, Congressman, who actually put that in? Do we know? Wait, who was that? That was someone from one of the NASCARs. And I love NASCAR, too. I mean, I have some good friends down in Charlotte who are going to be hosting us later this year. But it's this could have either been a really cynical ploy by Democrats who want to get the NASCAR voters. Okay, they want those NASCAR votes.
Well, and by the way, we call it NASCAR because that's where the expansions are going. That's where the new grandstands are needed. You could race SCCA in the same place, but there's no question that for all of us that are race fans and so on, you go, boy, I'd love to promote it, but do I need to promote it with a tax benefit that isn't available to somebody who's buying a new piece of machine tool to hire an American to run to make something?
But I got to tell you, I've been off radio for about 5.5 weeks, and
and we missed you. Welcome back. I'm glad you got me back on your first show.
Come on, isn't this great? You and Ted Poe, two of my faves. So I've been thinking a lot about Washington, and it is no wonder, Congressman, that people have begun to tune out political conversations. I mean, in the media, they're tired of it because they think it's all a zero-sum game. that it's obvious what has to be done. But look, Democrats won the presidency. They won more seats in the House. They won seats in the Senate that they never should have won. And so they have a lot more power than Republicans have, and they seem to have a rising star, as Republicans seem to have their stars falling one after the other. And we see the John Boehner, I like John Boehner. I know people, Laura, he's thrown out. But, people are saying his speakership could be in trouble after this, that there's some whispering. I heard this during break, that there's whispers of a challenge to Boehner. And Eric Cantor votes against. He votes against this monstrosity with you. Would someone like a Cantor or an Issa or a Poe or a Culberson, would you all think of challenging John Boehner after this vote?
Well, first of all, I voted with Eric Cantor and Kevin McCarthy and a number of other people in the leadership, but leadership was split on this. And, Laura, I think the important thing between now and every day for the rest of the time that I'm honored to serve, I have to ask a question. Am I for lower taxes, something that George W. Bush touted, or am I for smaller government, something that hasn't been properly touted since Ronald Reagan? And right now, today, 151 of us know that we voted saying it's time for smaller government. It's time to get rid of the deficit by reducing government, not by increasing or not increasing taxes. We can't grow our way out of a $1.3 trillion deficit, and we're not even heading toward doing it. So you're right about one thing. The last election was not kind to us, but our standard bearer for president wasn't about smaller government. You might remember Mitt Romney ran on. He was going to lower taxes further. And I think maybe the American people saw through that. And what they need to hear is governments are too big, taxes are too high. But let's do it in that order. It's government is too big, and unless we reduce the size of government, we're not going to be able to deal with the tax question. Taxes inevitably will go up.
We're out of time, sir. But is John Boehner's speakership in jeopardy?
I believe that all of us as Republicans need to lead, or our leadership is in jeopardy. Yesterday, we made a decision.
I'll take that as a yes. Is his speakership in jeopardy? Come on, Issa, you're a straight talker.
I am a straight talker, and the fact is that I intend on leading, along with Eric Cantor and many of the rest of us, in a direction towards smaller government. I believe the Speaker will come with us. Last night, he didn't, but I believe the Speaker will come with us.
Maybe he just might not be Speaker when he does. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that I understand that we need to be for smaller government, and that change occurred last night with 151 of us. We knew we were going to lose, but we still voted the way we had to.
All right. Coming up, and Congressman Issa, we appreciate it. Coming up, New Year's...